Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you an updated build for Rafa in Borderlands 4 using no exploits or glitches, and you can see here we're actually able to delete bosses' health bars insanely quick. And this build is pretty much nerf proof because of a core ability that he has. The Peacebreaker Cannon skill tree here with the Bullet Buddy Deluxe allowing us to get infinite ammo, and this is extremely powerful on certain weapons we'll be breaking down in this video, but also the Instinto class mod or augment is also extremely powerful here. Now, I also really like to use the Instigator legendary class mod if you're able to get that, as there's some fun skill rolls that we can roll into here. This is going to be heavy on the ricochets. It's got a little tiny bit of life steal to keep us alive, sustain high damage, and everything to take down all the bosses in Ultimate Vault Hunter 5. The nice thing is we actually have a lot of different weapons here that can work great on this build as well, and it's not reliant on things like the critical hit knife, despite it still being a really good option. There's a couple different ways that we can go about building this. However, I think the best choice, I previously was taking the CTR here for the gun damage increases, but getting our Peacebreaker cannons to fire quicker is also a huge boost to our DPS, as is the fire rate increases. You can also get some skill rolls here to increase this even further, but I think that just 5 points in this is great. And to keep our Peacebreaker cannons up infinitely, we have the Herga here, which will give us action skill restoration whenever we get a critical hit. And again, we're going to be focusing on trying to get as many of these as possible. This is a cooldown of 4 seconds. You're likely getting critical hits every 4 seconds. Now, getting an increase to the skill drainage from the Maestro here is extremely good because this is just going to boost up all of our damage there. And this is a little bit different than action skill damage. Now, skill damage is a little bit different from action skill damage because it applies a lot of more things in our skill tree. We see this as Vex as well, so it actually applies Vitriol, the concentrated buildup, and even if we go into the green skill tree with Midnight Oil, it's going to be boosting up those damages, so we're going to take that. I found the 27% is great. There's a couple others here that are decent. You can get the damage reduction. I used to previously like taking this, especially if you got like the Timekeeper's New Shield. You can become pretty tanky when utilizing that setup, especially if you're using the Hostile Acquisition. And you can go higher into this with a full, like if you use the Timekeeper's New Shield to go full in on the health bar, the damage reduction from the shield in this can be extremely powerful. I've tried it. It does work. If you like using that shield, or if you have one and you just want to experiment, you can go around that. But for the others, we're going to go with the El Valiente here, which will increase our damage dealt when we have our shield full. And there's actually a really good shield for this that can give you shield boosters. It's going to keep your shield full, giving us that increase in the damage. You can take a third point here, which will increase our damage a further 10%. But we also have some other skill tree points that we want to get down to. Now, there's a couple really good augments or capstones that we can work towards. So it's actually valid to go into the left or the right skill trees. I found, however, that going into the left skill tree is a little bit better. Keeping the Bullet Buddy lock, because we don't want to change our augment here. Although we can, there's a funny interaction I found with the unmissable missiles. Whenever you use this and swap to an underbarrel, you can actually add the damage onto your missiles, which is kind of funky. However, I think it's best to go into this. We only have one choice, the asymmetric warfare, which is a good choice. Indirect projectiles will get increased damage. Indirect projectiles are action skills. So anything for our Peacebreaker cannon. I get this question a lot. Indirect projectiles are ricochets, our action skill, thrown guns. Anything that we don't shoot directly out of our gun will count towards this. So we actually have a lot on the skill tree that will apply to this. Now, there's a couple options. Rolling Stone's kind of funny, but it's not good. We want the Errant Spark. Now, all indirect projectiles will deal bonus fire damage, and if they already deal that fire damage, you get a double bonus. The bonus damage in this game is really good. We always want to take as many bonus damages increases as we can, because these are different than getting a bonus to our gun damage. It's actually going to stack up even higher because it actually benefits from if we have any gun damage increases, as that will also double dip into this. Now, I like to take at least one stack of Hostile Acquisition. Now, we're going to be, depending on how many points you put into this, you do sacrifice from other skill trees. However, I really like the life steal. And as mentioned, if you're going to be using the damage reduction from Resiliencia, you can also go with this here and then use the Timekeeper's New Shield to become really tanky. Otherwise, if you have a shield that has a lot of capacity, only 1 or 2 points is going to be best. I'm just going to leave it at 1 for right now. And then we also have the double auto shot. It's going to be your first capstone. You can alternate between the two of them. There's actually a funky interaction. I mentioned one with unmissable missiles, but Beam Team also has one with a certain enhancement that I've been told about. So maybe I'll do a video on that, but I do think that will end up getting patched, whereas this build won't. But the double auto shot is nice because it gives you damage, and these will critically hit and ricochet around. I also like to take, I have one from the class mod, but the lateral plinking allows your indirect projectiles to get an additional chance to ricochet, which is really good. So, yeah, this is going to give us a big boost for damage. It looks hilarious on certain guns like TK's Wave, which you see the pellets flying through the air everywhere. But this takes us over to the next area that we're going to go into. I did experiment with some green skill trees. Like, you can go 5 stacks of the Midnight Oil here. It's just that the rest of the skill trees are more so like this is melee focused. This one's kind of focused on using the action skill and ordinances, so it doesn't fit. And for my testing, it's actually best to stick within the red skill tree. Now, you can get bonus, ordinances will deal bonus damage to the gun's current element. This is okay if you really like to use ordinances. However, I think the Vitriol is really nice because then this allows us to use something like the Hot Slugger and get a massive boost to our damage, or anything else that has a low magazine size because it'll increase our overall damage. Now I try the pain reaction. This will give us increased critical ricochet chance based on the amount of status effects on an enemy, which is actually pretty good because we're going to be focused on applying them. However, I have this class mod here, and I found this is actually really good. So concentrated buildup is really interesting. So with 4 stacks into this, when aiming a gun, you get bonus shock damage, and each time that we deal gun damage to an enemy while we're aiming, we get a further stack of this damage. 20 stacks, 4.5 times. We will get a bonus 18% and then a bonus 90% damage at full stack. So if you aim down, something like the oh my gods, you can get crazy shock damage out. So if there's any bosses that come out in the raids, bosses in the future that are really weak to shock, we're going to have a really good time with this. However, shock damage is always going to be nice as a luxury to be able to shred through shields a little bit quicker, and it's always something you're going to encounter. So I like to go with the having the class mod with this. This also gives us a beam team. This is the class mod or augment I was using. The capstone I was using earlier at the start of the video. It actually is interesting because it'll get increases to the action skill damage by 5% every time that we can get upwards of 50 stacks of this, so that you can get some high damage if you're using this. However, I personally prefer the double auto shot. I will be possibly doing a video on this one in the future, but we also got the Alacran here, which enemies defeated by our Peacebreaker cans have an increased chance to get status effects. I really like this because we want to apply status effects. I did like the pain reactor, but we do have points that are tight. We only have 11 left here. So this is an option if you like, because this will give you increased ricochets here. But we also have an option here now. I mentioned the unbristable missiles here, but now if you're using the Dancer class mod, this isn't going to work because this increases your overall duration, and the Dancer class mod makes your overdrive benefits last whenever you activate your action skills. So this is good if you took the resiliency class mod, which I'm going to be using for this build. So we're going to spec into this. Otherwise, this is decent ordnance skill. Increased splash damage while overdrive is active. So this actually applies to like the missiles. And if you wanted to take this here, you could go with rockets and ordnances. But I think I'm going to do a separate video on this one because it is kind of interesting using ordinances. But I'm going to take this if you're using the Dancer class mod, take the barrage. Now this takes us down to one of the best skills, the Temerario, which overdrive skill, increase gun damage but decrease gun handling for every stack. This used to be a little bit different in how it works, but if you can get a class mod that gives you 5 points to this is probably going to be the best because the gun damage stacks are very nice. I like the skill a lot. You don't have to spec into it. It is just an option, but it's a powerful one because the gun damage is very nice. The Devil May Care, I love the name, but not as strong as an option. We do have a lot of sacrifices that have to be made somewhere here, unfortunately, so the health regeneration is just not that good from this choice when you can get gun damage increases. Pretty much a no-brainer at this point. Now, you can take the Soltado, which will double all overdrive bonuses for 8 seconds on a kill, which is pretty nice. I mean, we made it all the way down here, but again, I also mentioned that taking more life steal is not a bad option. And again, if you're going to go all in on the life steal and use the Timekeeper's New Shield, 5 stacks of this instead of those points, and then 5 stacks there, and you're going to be pretty much unkillable. It's fun playing that style. I may do a life steal build in the future, but again, we may as well take the Soltado there. We got 3 capstones. We have 2 skill mods that are on here, and then a huge boost to shock damage. So this is pretty fun because of the Instigator class mod. I really like this one. I did a video where I ranked all of the Rafa class mods, and I didn't rank this one the highest, but basically whenever our Peacebreaker cannons are firing at an enemy, we get a stack of Instigator, and we lose all stacks, and the Peacebreaker cannons fire at a new enemy. Now, we can actually barrel stuff ourselves and keep ourselves focused on one enemy. And especially with the vault boss that I showed at the start of this video, you can get this to stack up really quickly. You can get like 50 stacks of this, plus 2% gun damage. You get massive increases to overall damage, which is really nice. So we want that. This also gives us action skill duration plus 45%. And this one came with maximum skill. This one came with the shield capacity, but it came with the action fist too. And actually, if you can get 3 stacks of action fist, this is pretty nice because then you get increased melee damage. We don't really care too much. We mostly want the action skill damage increased by 30%, and then also increase it whenever we do a melee attack, melee kill. I also like to have 3 points in the Deadeye here, which will give us increased critical hit damage because we do want to focus on critical hits. And then the high caliber is another good one. You can go with 2 points. So 3 Deadeye, 2 high caliber is probably best. But out of all the class mods, there's actually a lot of them, and they just fixed some of these here to actually properly throw grenades. You can use the Grenazerker and use something like the Chuck assault rifle because it counts as a gun for this purposes of this, and you can throw 2 of those at a time. It's actually pretty good damage, but I didn't find it to be that great. I'm working on a new Apophis Lance because you can actually make it so that you keep your Apophis Lance pretty much up indefinitely. And the Dancer, as mentioned, you can get really good rolls. This is kinetic damage increases on it, but the skill rolls aren't as good as what I found on the Instigator. And the Instigator gives us a crazy boost to our damage, although you do have to kind of barrel stuff. Now, into shields, the Watts for Dinner is great because this gives us a 25% bonus shock damage whenever we have our shield up, and it gives us over shield charges that we can get. This one came with capacity. You can go with one that's going to drain. Like you can get 35% shield drain for 150% boost to your damage. That's going to be really strong too, but I find that it works better on like Vex. And as mentioned, the Timekeeper's new shield can actually work really well here. Fireworks is great if you're just doing general mobbing, because these will fly out and deal damage to enemies. Really, really good. But you can also go with a protein cell. You can do a shock. You can slam the ground and get extra shock damage. And this would be one you'd want to use your max lifesteal on, because your damage goes through the shield. So this can be actually interesting. It's a bit higher damage than using the Watts for dinner, but it makes you it's more risky playstyle, but it's really strong nonetheless. And the Onion Shield's pretty decent as well. You can also use a Super Soldier if you want to. Now for enhancements, there are some really good ones here. I'm just going to be using a Bounce Pass Jacob's License accessory here, because I just find that this one is really strong, especially because we can use some Jacob's types weapons here. You can get Queen's Rest in the Jacob's roll, but this allows us to ricochet to multiple enemies, and we're a Ricochet build, so this is something that we definitely want. And this one also gives a 20% chance to get a critical hit whenever we fire with Jacob's License parts. Now, there's also some really good ones here, like the Crushing Steward. So this one will give us the chance to refill our magazines with Daedalus. Now, this is good if you want to use let's say you wanted to swap off of using Bullet Buddy Deluxe for your augment, which is the best augment here, because this gives us infinite ammo. You can swap to Instinto for just mobbing, because this increases the skill duration time when you take out enemies. And if you're going to be using that, then using something like the Steward here, which gives us the 40% chance to refill our magazines, and will slowly regenerate ammo with Daedalus licensed parts. This also comes with gun damage increase in shotgun magazine. This is actually the best roll for the bod, because with the bod now, it's counting as a shotgun, so it's getting the 75% extra magazine, but it's also a gun, so it gets that 25% gun damage boost 5 times, and this is a really huge boost to overall damage. And then the Torg License Sticky, it's going to increase the damage by 3% per shot that you have on the enemy. If we use the Bullet Buddy Deluxe, we don't have to reload. We get massive damage. As you saw at the start, we deleted the Vault Boss immediately. Now, there's a lot of enhancements. You can use like the waterfall grenades, but the critical hit knife is great because we do have so many benefits. And the critical hit knife is going to get a buff. Right now, it currently sets your critical hit rate to 30%. It's not a 30% boost. It's only pure 30. So this will actually be changed in the future. It'll then become a plus 30% critical hit chance. So this will still probably be the best despite its hefty nerf. Then we also get the triple bypass, giving us the extra 200% amp shot. Now for weapons, I love the TK's Wave. This is an extremely powerful weapon, especially if you can get one with the Alt Fire Atlas license tracking shot, basically. Ripper licensed magazine lets us shoot this faster. And obviously this is a Jacob's gun, so this will chain around multiple enemies. But what's great about this is it runs out of ammo really quickly. If you can get a Ripper one, you can actually boom, 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 shoot really fast whenever we have our Bullet Buddy Deluxe up. The Phantom Flame, this locks on and can deal crazy damage. If you aim down sights, you're doing nuts damage because it's going to be fire and shock at the same time. It's really great on this build. We also have the Queen's Rest here. If you can get with the Jacob's License accessory, that's even better. There's a lot of different rolls you can get for the Queen's Rest. It's actually a really strong weapon here. I guess this would be a little bit better. So the Jacob's License accessory, and then also this one's only 13% extra damage per gyro jet that you have on the enemy. The other one was 17%, but the Jacob's License accessory bounced it around, so you actually get higher DPS. The bod, always going to be a great gun here, especially if you can get a Daedalus pistol or if you can get the SMG or sniper on the extra bullets, because this will make a tighter spread so you can hit at further ranges. And then this also procs our gear here to work properly. The 7th Sense pistol is also a really good pistol. This is a very underrated weapon, very high damage, and it's Jacob's License accessory, so it can bounce around. And then we also have the Lucian's Flank, which just on the lightest patch got a 50% boost to its damage. So I really like this gun on here actually, because it's just it's a good one for mobbing with the amount of critical hits and chained attacks you'll get. It also refills ammo whenever you get critical hits, so you don't have to use Bullet Buddy Deluxe. This is one you can run Instinto with. You can run Instinto with these two, and they'll be very powerful. Now for Specializations, now with Caffeine is great because this again gives our action skill back. With the Repkit, if we're using again the triple bypass there, we're able to get our actions to go back immediately, so fantastic. I Am a Gun will add our gun damage boost to our action skill, which is great because we actually have a bunch of boosts like the Temerario there, which will boost up our action skill damage. Riddle You This will also give us further stacks of gun damage, and also this gives us, again, applying it back to our action skill. And then on top of that, the Honed Mind will give us critical hits on our action skill, which are great too. So I really like all three of them into the Daredevil, and then one here for the Riddle You This. So we have some pretty funny interactions with guns like this here, which are not very high damage. And the thing is, despite being able to get our action skill back like immediately right now, if we were just to use our Repkit, we don't even need our action skill active to do crazy damage. This is an ultimate vault under 5, remember? And due to the enhancement that we have that increase our magazine size, the bod can handle its own pretty well here when we're mobbing without our action skill active. And then, for example, like the TK's Wave here, you can see does insane amounts of damage. And then the pellets, as I mentioned, are hilarious how they ricochet around. Unfortunately, they do explode. So you do have to watch out for that, but it is a fun gun, especially because if we aim down our sights here, we do get that extra shock damage, which you can see is shredding through the boss's health bar there, and you just literally keep firing with the Bullet Buddy Deluxe there. So yeah, that is an OP Rafa build updated with the latest updates to the nerfs that we got. But yeah, I'll be exploring some of the other crazy abilities that you can do with this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the subscribe button below if you enjoyed. We'll catch you all in the next video.